Hello everyone. Today we are going to be solving quadratics, continuing yesterday's lesson, but this time we're going to be solving quadratics that are not in standard form. We're still going to be solving by factoring though. So what does that mean? So remember, our quadratic is any equation that has this form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Remember, the quadratic comes from 2 being the highest power. So an example of that would be like 7x squared plus 10x minus 4 equals 0. So this is a quadratic equation, but today we're going to be looking at the ones that are not in standard form. So again, this is considered standard form, where all three terms are on one side of the equal sign. So we're going to be looking at quadratics that have something slightly different, something like, let's say we have 8x squared plus 9x equals 15. Where one of the terms is on the opposite side of the equal sign. So standard form is when they're all in the same side of the equal sign. So we're going to be looking at these that we're going to be factoring. So that's going to add one more step to our steps from yesterday on how to solve a quadratic by factoring. So let's go ahead and get started. So number one, we have x squared plus x equals 12, where our quadratic term is on the right side. Our constant term is on the right side and our quadratic term is on the left side with the linear term. So what we go ahead and do first is we're going to take that 12 and move it back to the left side. But that 12 will not combine with either x squared or x. Because it's not in standard form, we cannot do the x factor just yet. So we're going to go ahead and move the 12 by subtracting it on both sides. But again, it's not going to combine with anything because it's a single constant term. So when I rewrite my quadratic, I'm going to put that last. So I'm going to put x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. So now we know what to do. Whenever one of the terms is on the right side and the other ones are on the left side, we move them all to the same side. Now we can go ahead and do what we did yesterday, which is factor, then use the zero product property to solve. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing we do our x factor. We have our negative 12 on top. No, not negative 12. It's negative 12. And a 1x on the bottom. Remember, there's an invisible 1 there. So we want two numbers that multiply to 12 and combine to negative 12 and combine to give us 1. So that would be 4 times 3. And the 3 needs to be the negative term. Now we're going to go ahead and use our shortcut because we do have a 1x squared here. So we're going to go ahead and put x plus 4 and x minus 3. These are my two factors that get multiplied and equal 0. So one of them needs to be 0. So there's two possibilities. First possibility comes from the first factor where x equals negative 4. Or our second option is from the second factor where x equals positive 3. And we are done with number one. We have our two solutions for our quadratic that started off not being in standard form. Let's go ahead and do number two. So once again, we have one of the terms on the right side. And we're going to take that term and move it over. So the negative 5x needs to move back to the left because I want that 0 on the right to use the zero product property. So in order to eliminate negative 5x, we do plus 5x because it is not in standard form. So we're going to go ahead and add 5x to both sides. Again, 5x does not combine with any of the other two terms because they are not common terms. So we just write them all out, but make sure you put them in order. 3x squared goes first, 5x goes second, and minus 2 goes third. We want to make sure we write them in order. So we're going to go ahead and now do our x factor. And we're going to set it up. We have 3 times 2. That gives us negative 6. X squared. Bottom 5x. Two numbers that multiply to 6. Combine or subtract in this case to give us 5. We'd use 6 times 1, and one of them is negative. The 1 would be negative to get a positive 5. Question is, can I use my shortcut? I have a 3x squared. Because there's a 3 there, my answer is no. So I need to do the box for this one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do my box here. That's a bad one. Or let's do it again. Remember, first term goes in the first box, last term goes in the last box. Middle term takes these two. It doesn't matter which one goes first and which one goes second. And I'm going to go ahead and ask myself the GCF of the top two, 3x. So we need an x at the top to get 3x squared. 3 times what is 6? That's 2. And x times what is negative 1x? We need a negative 1. Lastly, 2 times negative 1 checks off to negative 2. So my two factors are 3x plus 1, minus 1, and x plus 2, and that all equals 0. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve these. The first one, I'm going to write it out, 3x minus 1 equal to 0. In order to solve this, I add 1 to both sides, then I divide by 3. So I get a fraction as my first answer, x equals 1/3. For the second one, I just get x equals negative 2. And I am done with this. Let's go ahead and move on to the next example. So we have another quadratic, and here we have more than 3 terms. We have actually 4 terms. That means some of them should be able to combine, so let's get them all on the same side. So I'm going to move the 4x over, and that's going to combine with the 6x. Remember, it's not in standard form. And I'm going to go ahead and move the 15, which is not going to combine with anything. So I'm going to subtract 4x, and I'm also going to subtract the 15. You can do it in 1 step or 2 steps. Remember, it's not in standard form, just moving the 1 term. You got to move the 15 as well. So now we have x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. So again, now it's in standard form. Make sure everything gets moved to one side. If you prefer, you can move everything to the right. Works the same way. I'm going to do my x factor now. We have negative 15x squared at the top. We have 2x. My solutions would be 5 times 3, where the 3 is a negative term. Question is now, can I use my shortcut? Let's look at the x squared term. Answer is yes. So we have x plus 5 and x minus 3. Sorry, that's not what I wrote. X plus 5, x minus 3. All this equals to 0. Using zero product property, my answers are quick ones here. X equals negative 5. That's what makes this one 0. X equals 3 is what makes this other one equal to 0. And we have our 2 solutions. Let's move on to the next one. All right, we have a word problem here. So let's say if x squared is added to 2x, the sum is 35. Find the values of x. So we're going to go ahead and start off by writing the quadratic ourselves. So we're saying if x squared is added to 2x, so we're adding x squared and 2x. The sum is, again, the word is, or my answer is, meaning equals, the word is represents equals 35. So I'm given the quadratic. Now I need to put it in standard form. So that means I need to take my 35 and move it to the other side by subtracting it. Again, it does not combine with either one of these two, so I'm just going to put it here on the side. Now I'm going to rewrite my quadratic. X squared goes first, the x term goes second, and the 35 goes next, or last. And then it all equals to 0. I'm going to do my x factor. Negative 35 at the top, 2x at the bottom. And numbers I multiply to 35 and subtract to give me 2, so 7 times 5. Where the 5 is negative. Shortcut, yes or no. Looking at x squared, the answer should be yes. So x plus 7 is my first factor. X minus 5 is the second factor. And then we go ahead and solve these. First solution is x equals negative 7. Second solution is x equals positive 5. So now it's your turn to do this. Go ahead and do the you try problems, pause the video, and come back when you're ready to check your answers. All right, let's go ahead and see what you guys have. So again, not in standard form. We need to move that 64 over. So you should have ended up with x squared minus 16 plus 64. And from here, you should have done your x factor and gotten the following answer. Once factored, you should have gotten x equals -8 or x equals -8 again. So in this case, you wouldn't want to write it twice. Something that might be easier is just write x plus 8 squared equals 0, right? And just say x equals -8. So if you put x equals -8 twice, that's fine, same idea. All right, let's look at number 2 on the U-try. And again, this one you should have put it in standard form because it's not in standard form. Subtract the 4 and add the 15x. So if you did that, you should have gotten the following, the 4 and the 40 combined. When you move the 15 over, because it's still not in standard form, make sure you put the 15 second, and then you should have factored it from here and gotten the following. And then you wrap it up after getting your x plus 12 and x plus 3 to get -12 as one solution and -3 as your second solution. And that's pretty much it. So go ahead and start your IXLs and your practice, and good luck.